Rivers teach us how stories travel. Mountains teach us why stories endure. This profound observation from J.M. Ferris, author of Mountains Remember, a storyteller's playbook for understanding mountain lore, immediately shifts our perspective on ancient tales. His work isn't an attempt to convince us that giants still sleep beneath mountains or that spirits wander forgotten peaks. Instead, it's a deep dive into something far older, far more human, why nearly every civilization standing beneath a mountain eventually filled it with legends. Mountains are among the few places on Earth that humans have never truly conquered. We climb them, map them, even tunnel through them. Yet they remain largely indifferent to our efforts. They stand where empires have fallen, languages have disappeared, and entire religions have been born and forgotten. Mountains outlive memory itself. Perhaps that's why humanity has always believed these towering giants hold memories of their own. The first rule of mountain lore tells us that every mountain legend begins with distance. This isn't just physical separation, it's emotional and spiritual distance, the gap between what humanity understands and what it never will. Unlike rivers, which invite movement and flow, mountains demand effort. Nothing atop a mountain is freely given. Every answer requires an ascent, every revelation demands a struggle. This inherent difficulty is precisely why mountains became the home of prophecy, of gods, monsters, hermits, miracles, and revelation. But why mountains specifically? It's simple. They're impossible to ignore. Long before maps, people saw mountains. Long before clocks, people watched shadows crawl across them. Before astronomy, people measured seasons by mountain peaks. Mountains controlled weather, water, migration, trade, war, isolation, and ultimately survival. Entire civilizations thrived because mountains protected them, and others vanished because mountains trapped them. No other landscape has influenced human history more quietly or profoundly. Think of it this way. A river tells a story across land, horizontally. A mountain, however, tells a story upward, vertically. Every climb becomes symbolic. Below, there's comfort. Above, uncertainty. Near the summit, we find transformation. Humans instinctively associate elevation with meaning. We still use phrases like higher purpose, high ideals, looking up, or rising above. Our very language remembers this connection. It's no surprise, then, that nearly every civilization placed its divine beings somewhere high. This wasn't because anyone had actually climbed there, but because no one could. Distance created mystery, mystery became sacred, and sacred places became the homes of gods. Consider Olympus, Sinai, Fuji, Kailash, the Andes, or the Himalayas. Different names, but the same fundamental idea. The closer one climbed toward heaven, the closer one came to the unknowable. Mountains also appear to slow time. Walk beside a river, and it changes daily. Stand before a mountain, and it seems largely unchanged. A mountain becomes the perfect illusion of permanence. Generations come and go, yet the mountain remains. To a child, it was ancient. To that child's grandchildren, it appears exactly the same. Mountains became symbols of eternity because they seemed immune to history, though geology, of course, tells a different story. Every mountain story, from ancient myths to modern adventure tales, follows a recognizable structure. There's usually a call where someone leaves ordinary life, not always because they want to, but because they must. Then comes the ascent, where the climb becomes difficult, and the traveler might lose certainty, friends, strength, or even themselves. At the summit, truth is discovered, sometimes glorious, sometimes devastating. Finally, the descent brings the traveler back, but they are never the same person. The greatest mountain stories aren't about reaching the top, they're about becoming someone else before returning home. Just like river stories, mountain stories possess an invisible hero, the storyteller. Without shepherds, hunters, pilgrims, monks, elders, climbers, or tribal historians, none of these legends would survive. Mountains preserve stone, but people preserve memory. The storyteller becomes the crucial bridge between both. We see this play out in mountain legends around the world. Take Bigfoot in North America. Nearly every reported encounter occurs in remote forests, mountain ranges, or wilderness areas. Why? Because mountains remain places where humans willingly admit we do not know everything. Bigfoot represents the unknown that simply refuses to disappear. It's a journey from civilization to wilderness, eventually leading to humility. Whether you believe in it or not, Bigfoot reminds us that unexplored places still exist. Then there's the Yeti in the Himalayas, living high among snow-covered peaks. Stories and descriptions vary, but the mountain remains a constant. The Yeti belongs to altitude itself. It represents survival in conditions where humans barely can. This journey involves curiosity leading to isolation, and ultimately, to respect. The mountain humbles everyone equally. Consider the dragon of the Alps. Across Europe, countless dragons were said to sleep inside mountains, not flying across kingdoms, but coiled beneath stone. Why? Mountains shake, avalanches happen, rocks fall, volcanoes erupt. Long before geology provided explanations, dragons were the explanation for movement beneath otherwise motionless mountains. This legend represents a journey from disturbance to awakening to survival, where the monster became an explanation for natural forces. The Wendigo, found in northern forests and the Canadian Shield, although not solely a mountain creature, often appears in rugged wilderness far from civilization. The Wendigo isn't just a creature, it's a warning. It embodies greed, isolation, and consumption. It teaches that the farther one removes themselves from community, the greater the danger. Its journey is from need to excess and then to transformation. And we can't forget the mountain hermit, a figure found across China, Japan, Tibet, Europe, and even Appalachia. This is the wise old man living alone atop the mountain. He knows things civilization has forgotten, asks difficult questions, and offers impossible advice. His journey involves withdrawal leading to wisdom, and sometimes a return. Sometimes the greatest treasure on the mountain isn't gold, it's perspective. Across Canada, Scandinavia, and Native American traditions, mountains themselves often become sleeping beings. Entire mountain ranges are said to be giants lying down. Why? Because mountains resemble bodies. Ridges become backs, peaks become faces, valleys become folded arms. This concept represents a journey of power leading to sleep and the promise of a future awakening. The lesson here is that nature may appear asleep, but we should never assume it's powerless. So, what do mountains symbolize? They represent permanence, patience, isolation, perspective, endurance, humility, sacrifice, and revelation. No other landscape carries so many meanings simultaneously. It's also fascinating to note that no one accidentally reaches a mountaintop. Every summit requires intention. This alone separates mountain stories from nearly every other folklore category. You might wander into forests, drift down rivers, or stumble into caves, but mountains demand a conscious choice. The climb itself becomes the lesson. Monsters live on mountains not because mountains are inherently evil, but because mountains hide. Fog, snow, distance, echoes, avalanches, thin air, and isolation all produce experiences that feel supernatural. Long before science explained altitude sickness, people explained strange visions through spirits. Before weather satellites, storms appeared from nowhere. The mountain became alive with these explanations. Almost every continent also possesses sacred peaks, mountains no one was meant to climb. Not because climbing was impossible, but because respect mattered more than conquest. To many cultures, the mountain itself is literally alive, not metaphorically. One does not conquer it, one visits. Modern climbers often speak similarly. They never beat the mountain, but rather feel they were allowed to return. Strip away the names, the monsters, and the miracles, and nearly every mountain legend asks the same fundamental question. What changes inside a person after they leave comfort behind? That, ultimately, is the real summit. Elders told these stories because mountain folklore preserved practical wisdom. They taught respect for storms, the importance of traveling together, not to underestimate winter, to prepare before climbing, to honor sacred places, to know your limits, and to turn back when necessary. Nature owes you nothing. The monster often existed because the lesson needed remembering. Communities built near mountains often describe themselves differently. They become resilient, independent, patient. Mountain life shapes culture, and therefore mountain stories shape identity. The legends aren't separate from the people, they become part of who they are. A storyteller's responsibility isn't to ask, did the giant really exist? The storyteller asks, what did the giant teach? That question is what preserves culture. Stories evolve, but lessons endure. When you encounter a mountain legend, J.M. Ferris offers a framework for understanding it more deeply. Ask yourself, why must the journey go upward? What challenge is greater than the monster? What transformation occurs during the climb? Why couldn't this story happen somewhere else? What danger might the legend have helped people survive? Who preserved this story across generations? What does the mountain represent to that culture? And finally, what truth survives even if the creature itself does not? Answering these questions helps you read folklore the way its original storytellers intended. The difference between rivers and mountains is quite telling. Rivers teach movement, mountains teach stillness. Rivers carry memory away, mountains hold memory in place. River legends often warn us not to cross too carelessly, while mountain legends warn us not to climb too proudly. One says, respect the current, the other, respect the height. Both are really saying the same thing, respect forces greater than yourself. Empires have carved roads through mountains, miners have hollowed them, pilgrims have climbed them, scientists have measured them, artists have painted them, and poets have celebrated them. Yet none of these acts changed what the mountain fundamentally is. That realization has inspired storytellers for thousands of years. The mountain doesn't move to meet us, we move to meet it. And when we descend, we almost always carry something we didn't bring with us. Sometimes wisdom, sometimes fear, sometimes gratitude, and sometimes only another story. You don't have to believe that a giant sleeps beneath a ridge, that a mysterious figure walks a snowy pass, or that an ancient dragon coils beneath the granite. But before dismissing the tale, pause long enough to consider the person who carried it. Perhaps it was a shepherd who knew every trail by heart, a monk who spent decades in solitude, a grandparent who watched storms gather over the same peak for 70 years, or a child who listened with wide eyes and grew into the next storyteller. The mountain may not have spoken, but someone believed it had something worth saying. And for that reason alone, the story deserves to be heard. As J.M. Ferris reminds us, mountains do more than rise above the earth, they rise above time. And like the people who remember them, they remind us that the greatest stories aren't always the ones we can prove, they're the ones we refuse to let disappear. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, please share it with someone who enjoys exploring the deeper meanings in our world.